Welcome, Kathy, and welcome, Buddy. It's so good to have you here at the space today on this nice rainy morning. We needed the rain, I'm told. My wife tells me the garden is necessary.
Yeah,
How
it's
are
great
ya?
to be here.
It's great to be here.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome. You walked in with some instruments, and we're going to have some fun later. But for now, let's learn about the Mandolin Heritage Association, Kathy.
Well, it started a few years back, actually many years back. Buddy is a very prolific instrumental songwriter on the mandolin, and it's just flowing, and there's so many of them, and so many times I've known Buddy for 20 years. I would just say, you got to get all this written down, you got to get all this recorded, and at that point there was so much, and there's only so much money in a budget of a musician to get this done, and at that time, we had a few interested people who said they would sponsor if we became a nonprofit. So we kept saying, we've got to do this, we've got to do this. But, it was him and I, and we needed more. We needed some more people behind us. And it was a few years ago that Buddy began collaborating with Taylor Ackley of the Deep Roots Ensemble at Stony Brook University. And Buddy was mentoring him, and it wasn't very long before Taylor said, this guy has written some significant music that needs to be preserved. And
Light bulb moment.
That was music to my ears.
Yeah.
And he took a real interest, and, we discussed the nonprofit, and he said he'd get on board. And before long, we had Alan Varela and Amy Tuttle of the Port Jeff Arts Council on board. And since then, we've brought on a few more board members and created the Mandolin Heritage Association.
I like that background, Buddy.
Yeah.
And you know what I'll say is the inspiration that is necessary for a musician to go beyond his craft. I'm very, very familiar with that. So you're so focused on your craft of playing and writing, and that stuff outside that sometimes feels it's a million miles away, that business stuff, if you will. I'm sure that's what entered your picture here, right?
Oh, it did. I mean, it really started getting focused on this. I turned 65 several years ago, and a week later, a whole bunch of pretty serious health issues came around. I turned 65, and that was that. I found myself in Stony Brook University Hospital a few times. And I realized I wasn't going to live forever. And I've written over 1,000 compositions for the mandolin. That's what I do. I just write them. And sometimes they make it into the band repertoire, and sometimes they just sit there on the tape or whatever. And, boy, I really want to get some of this stuff written down before I can't do it anymore.
I'm so inspired by what you say, because I remember Steve Jobs of Apple gave that very memorable speech at a college graduation, and it was all about that. You're not going to live forever.
Yeah.
And use that not as a morbid piece, but as a incentive to get things done and or document, and that's exactly what you've done.
Sure.
I think if people started that thinking at 35 years old, which is tough to do,
Yeah.
we'd have super achieving people.
Well, you think you're going to live forever when you're 35.
That's what I mean, yeah.
You don't think of it then.
Right, absolutely. So give me, I want to learn a little bit about you. This is the first time we've met. Your childhood in terms of musicianship and or your family as musicians.
Well, Dad was a athlete, so he didn't really get the artsy part. But I'll tell you, the best thing about my dad was, his license plate even said, "Be you," and that's how he raised me, And even though he was an athlete and we had differences of opinion and stuff, he wanted me to follow the path that was important to me. I'm really lucky for that.
Yeah, it's an absolute gift.
And I became really close friends with Bill Monroe. He was the man who created bluegrass music and had Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys his whole life, basically. And I learned a lot from him. And sometimes it would just be me and him playing. And he'd play a piece, and I knew his music really good. And I'd say, gee, I don't believe I ever heard that one. And he'd say, well, it ain't got a no title. and that was it. And it was just kind of like out there. He never recorded it. He never had it written down. And it's a lot of these tunes are just gone.
Yeah, music from the gut when they're feeling in the moment, so to
Yeah,
speak.
he could just write a tune like that. And I started thinking about that, and I was like, I don't want that to happen to me. You know, I want to get the significant music written out and to pass it on to a future generation. Maybe in 100 years it'll be like the golden age of the mandolin.
Yeah, sure.
And people will be looking for material, and I got lots of tunes.
Yeah.
So that's what we're trying to look towards. And it's actually Dr. Taylor Ackley, and he's a music professor up in Brandeis University. And if he ends up staying there, that's probably where this Buddy Merriam archive will be, and it'll have all field recordings. I have hundreds of cool live recordings and just photographs and mandolin books, and it's all going to be in there for people to learn from down the road and everything. And it's a way for you get to be my age, you start thinking about your legacy
Sure.
and what you're going to pass on and what you've accomplished in this world.
Are you familiar with the Jazz Loft?
I'm very familiar
Yeah.
with the Jazz Loft. Matter of fact, I do some work with Tom Manuel.
Yeah.
He calls it Gospel Road, and it's a combination of gospel music and jazz and a little bit of bluegrass. And it's again, Steve Salerno plays guitar.
Wonderful.
Keenan Zach plays bass.
Right.
It's just a great band, and I love collaborating with him on that stuff.
So you have a similar story to, I told you my grandfather was a very prolific saxophone
Yeah.
player, and fast forward to give you some focus and some positive. He went to 95 with these thoughts. So he, you know, this
my
this
goodness.
legacy. As
Good
we're
for him.
speaking, I'm transcribing over 2,500 tapes.
Oh,
of
man.
anything from Carnegie Hall down to a local bar in Oneonta, New York. Because he would comment on them. So you may want to think about that too. By the way, I mean,
Yeah.
what we're doing here is sort of part of that library, but you may want to think about if you, as you're putting these things down, the audio tape, to comment on them,
There is going to be a comment section as well.
verbally comment. Obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Audible. Yep. So Kathy, we meet through real estate, and I can't believe like only 5 days later we're sitting here talking, deep bluegrass music with Buddy. This is awesome. I never expected it. I was like, but I just said yes, let's do this.
Well, there's always another side to people that you don't know.
There always is, especially us Geminis, right? So I want you to tell our audience, what you are hoping to achieve with the association, and let's talk about the event that's coming up.
Okay, so we have our maiden concert as the Mandolin Heritage Association being brought to the Village of Port Jefferson at Harborfront Park on Sunday, September 25th at 4 p.m. And it's going to feature some really expert musicians, including Buddy, of course, and Taylor Ackley, and Keenan Zach on bass, and Steve Salerno on guitar.
Oh, it's a wonderful foursome. Awesome.
Yeah, and we're hoping to bring people in to hear some music that they don't hear every day, and that they'll enjoy it and be inspired to help us with our mission, which is to continue the preservation of these compositions that Buddy's written. We've done 100 so far in the last year, over 100, I think. And so we just keep continuing on our project with Buddy right now is for 200, is it?
That's the first project, yes.
Okay, and that costs $20,000, and so we just want to raise awareness and hope people will join us in our endeavor and support the Mandolin Heritage
Absolutely.
Association.
It's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah.
It's a worthy cause for sure.
Yes, yeah, and we're so lucky to have such a treasure right here in our village. And the rain location is going to be at the Methodist Church, so if it rains, please come on out. We're still going to be playing at
Same
4
time?
p.m.
Same time?
Yeah, 4 p.m. at the Methodist Church. It's across from Theater 3.
Right. But the original location will be Harborfront Park stage at the far end, north end, near the harbor.
Yeah.
What a wonderful stage, and you'll have good weather. You'll be there.
Oh,
yeah.
And I'll be there. That's fantastic.
It's always good weather when you bring the Mandolin Association in.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the physical aspect of a mandolin. I did have a mandolin once. I felt a little uncomfortable. Even though I'm a guitar player, I felt, obviously I could play it, but it's different. It's 8 strings?
Yep. It's actually closer to a violin than a guitar.
Right.
It's the mandolin family. It has the same family of instruments, just like the violin does. There's the mandolin, mandola, like a viola. They make a mandocello, which is a beautiful, almost guitar-sized mandolin.
You'll have one there that day, right? Do we?
Maybe, I don't know.
All right.
And then they actually make a mando bass, which you hardly ever see. They're very rare. But just like the violin family. And so it's got 8 strings on
Right.
it instead of 4, and it has frets on it instead of the violin has no frets.
Right. Tell me about the tuning.
The tuning's the same as a violin. It's tuned in fifths, so it's a G, D, A, and E.
And what's the relationship of the 2 strings together? Are they exactly the same? Or
Yes.
They are.
It's a pair. It's all for volume. Because if you only had the single strings
I
on
know
there,
that.
it wouldn't hardly make any noise. So you have the doubles, so the sound gets out there, but it's a little more challenging to play because it's a pair of strings. But it's not like a 12-string guitar where they're like an octave apart. They're exactly the same.
Very cool. I wanted to ask you, what's your most proud moment or a moment that you can think of in a live setting through your whole life, that would just really wowed you and you kind of hold it, in high regard?
Sure, I could. Well, there
Probably
are several, but
yeah.
As I became friends and my mandolin chops improved a little bit, I would get together with Bill Monroe one-on-one. Really intimidating at first to sit there, and he would just sit there staring at me, and I would only play his music. That was what I did. And if I didn't do it exactly, I'm talking exactly, he'd reach over, I got to show you that, and he'd take my mandolin, and he'd play it like one time and hand me the mandolin back, and I was supposed to get it like that. And I couldn't at first. So I started recording our get-togethers. And then over the course of the next half a year, or whatever it would be, till I saw him again, I would just hit that hard. And I wanted not only to get the notes and the timing, I wanted the tone. I wanted to play as close to him as humanly possible. And I really put a lot of, and he could see each time we got together, he was taking the mandolin less from me. And then he started asking me to come up on stage with him.
Wow.
So that was the next progression. But the one time I really remember is I wrote a tune for him, and I called it Monroe Special. And he liked the title, and he had never heard it, though. And one of these times, he said to me, well, let's play it. I knew the band had never heard it, and he had never heard it. And I thought, now I'm going to come out on stage with Bill Monroe. And didn't want there to be a mistake or something.
Sure.
He said, oh, just get with the guitar player. And the guitar player wasn't too interested in it all. And I thought this might end up being a disaster. But then the bass player and the banjo player thought it sounded cool. And they said, hey, let's play it again. And I said, all right, it's going to be okay. So sure enough, he had me out. He had given me one of his tunes called The Frog on a Lily Pad to be the first one to record even before he did, which again was a big thing in my life. People didn't know who I was at that point, and who is this Long Island guy that Bill Monroe's given a tune to.
That's how it happens.
So we would always play that when I would come out with him.
Awesome.
And then he said, let's do another one. And I was going to chicken out on it because I just didn't feel like it was going to be solid.
Yeah.
And the bass player played, why don't you play that one you wrote? And Bill Monroe was shaking his head, yes. So I played Monroe Special, and I had Bill Monroe standing right next to me playing his mandolin.
Awesome.
I mean, it was just like...
What year was this about?
Early 90s,
Early
I
90s,
guess.
yeah.
Maybe 91, 92,
Wow.
something. He passed away in 96.
Okay. See, and you got to do that.
Yeah, oh man, I'll never forget it.
Wow, that's really, really awesome. What town was that in?
That was at the Turning Point Cafe. It was Piermont, New
Okay.
York. Yep.
Very cool
He did
story.
it. It was one of the places, if he was doing a tour, he would pick that off on the way up or on the way back down south on a weeknight,
Right.
get another date in.
Right.
And we would get together on his bus or in the green room. The band would always leave us alone, And we'd visit for a while. He knew my whole family and everything, and we'd talk about that. And then he'd say, well, play me something. And so I'd get my Mandolin mandolin out, and I'd start playing. If I wasn't doing it right, he'd take it and show
As
it.
perfectionist, yeah.
Well,
You gotta have that in life. Otherwise, you're just playing around.
Right.
He brought you focused.
Oh, very much.
You probably didn't think that at the time, but now you look back, and now you do probably what he wanted you to do, just based on your muscle memory on his expectations. That's how that works.
Yep.
It's
I mean,
wonderful thing to happen.
I wanted those little subtle things.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Make all the difference.
one tune I thought I played really good was the Lonesome Moonlight Waltz. And it's the Lonesome Moonlight Waltz. And I was kind of playing it like the Moonlight Waltz. And I was missing the lonesome part of it, you know? That was the whole point of the tune. And there was one section where it was one low note, harmony note. Boy, when you put that in, that made it lonesome.
Yep.
And so that's what I learned that time with him. It really was
Subtleties.
just a one note.
Musical
Just one
subtlety.
note.
That's what I wanted. And I hear so many people and they leave that out. Boy, when I play it and put that in, there's the
what's supposed
Lonesome
to be.
Moonlight Waltz right there. So that was important lessons to learn. Every time I got together with him, I knew how lucky I was and what a gift I was getting from him.
That's wonderful. That's a wonderful story. So Bill Monroe inspired you. Buddy inspires you and many of us. This is great.
Yeah.
So I want to mention again, you can see Buddy on September 25th, Harborfront Park, right here in Port Jefferson. I am so glad that I'm looking over there and I'm seeing you actually have your instrument here, and you're both going to do a tune.
Yeah,
I would like if you would do a tune.
let's do one.
Yeah, that'd be great. And so we'll see you the 25th. And you know what, Kathy? Let's mention the website of the association.
Yeah, you can go to our website at mandolinheritage.org. It's that easy.
And Facebook, too. We have a Facebook
Yes, we have a
presence as
Facebook
well.
page, Mandolin Heritage Association on Facebook, and you can check out all the neat things we're doing. We have weekly news, and we let you know what's going on.
And I put a monthly video up as well. That's another thing that we're starting for about 6 months now.
Oh, wonderful.
So,
Like a teaching or both?
Yeah, I usually talk a little bit about what the tune is about, and then I play it through a
Oh, that's
couple
wonderful.
times through.
And so you can see that on the website and Facebook.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent. All right, we'll see everybody the 25th. I think this is something that can't be missed. So I hope to see everybody there at Harborfront Park. And let's get to it. Play a tune for us. Thank you.
Thank you for having
Thank
us.
you.
We
You're
sure do
welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, I'd like to do a tune that's the theme song to my weekly radio program. It's on WUSB 90.1 FM in Stony Brook. I'm on 6 to 8 every Wednesday night for the last 31 years doing bluegrass time. And here's the theme song.